Hello, everybody, and my two little visitors upstairs. Welcome to Mix and Match Blanket Club for July. Can't believe it's July already. Today, I'm going to demonstrate some of the embellishment stitches. Specifically, I'm going to show how to do number 58, simple frills, and how to do number 60, the single crochet surface crochet. Many of the embellishments are similar, and I'll talk about that at the end. But knowing how to do the technique I'm going to show you, you could do any of the embellishment stitches in this section of the book. Okay, I'm going to start with number 60, the single crochet surface crochet. All of the embellishment stitches work on a base fabric. So you have to crochet a base fabric first, and then you're adding something to it at the end. It's not like when we did the mosaic where we were using two colors at the same time. This you're adding on after the fact. And you have to prepare your base fabric in order for the embellishment to work. There are many different kinds of base fabrics. You can do them in single crochet, double crochet, back loop only to give some texture. There are differences, but the basic part of it is the same. So I'm going to show you a little tip. As I was working on this last week to get ready, I'm like, oh my God, this is much harder than I thought. And then I remembered something from a class I learned that I took, a crochet shawl class that I took a while ago, about finding your space. So let me switch over to the camera and let's show. So again, I'm going to start with number 60, the single crochet surface crochet. So I'm going to start with the base fabric. Let's get okay. So this particular pattern is a multiple of 3 plus 12. Unless you were doing, let me move this so I can see my book here. Unless you were doing the foundation single crochet, in which case it would be multiples of 3 plus 11. Now I can see it. So I have really enjoyed doing the foundation single crochet. Let's see how many I've got on here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I'm just going to show one repeat on here. Okay. So this concludes if I do the foundation, your chain row plus row 1. So starting with row 2, I'm going to chain 1. It does not count as a stitch, as she points out. And I'm going to do 5 single crochets. So go right into that first stitch. 5 singles. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to skip 1 stitch, and I'm going to do 2 single crochets. I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to skip 1 stitch, so skip this one. And then I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'm going to do 1 repeat. Skip 1. 1, 2, yeah, 3, 4, and 5. So I've got 5 singles, a chain. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my chain 1 space, 2 singles, a chain 1 space, and then 5. I discovered in doing this, it's really hard to see those chain 1 spaces when you're making singles, particularly because we're only skipping 1 stitch. So we're not like we're, chaining 2 and creating a big opening. But what we are going to do when we do the embellishing part is that we need to be able to see those chain spaces, okay? And I found it was really hard to see them quickly, and it was going to be kind of a tedious process. So then I remembered something I learned in this class where we were doing a crocheted shawl, and we were doing increases. And when you got to the increase, then you made another increase. And again, it was fingering weight yarn, and it was single crochet or small stitches or something. It was really hard to see the increase. And she showed us a way to mark where your increases are. You could put stitch markers. That would be a lot of stitch markers. What she did is she used some waste yarn, okay? And I'm going to demonstrate how to use the waste yarn on this next row. So this is the same pattern, just with, oh no, that's a different pattern. Hold on. That's the other one I'm going to show you. Here's this one. Same thing. I got it all set up here for you. Strands. Okay. I'll show you how I use the waste yarn in marking. So I've got my 5 single crochets, a chain 1 space, and I added an extra repeat in this one. 2 singles, chain 1, skip 1, 2 singles, and 5 at the end. Let me show you how to use this waste yarn to mark your chain 1 space. And cut that yarn in class this morning, so let's get more yarn. Okay. All right. So then I'm going to do row 3, excuse me, which is my repeat row. Let me just join this yarn real quick. Okay, so chain 1 and turn and do 5 single crochets. 1. I know it looks a little bit like a hot mess, but trust me. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm ready to chain 1 and skip a stitch. I'm going to take my waste yarn. I'm going to bring it forward, and I'm going to just bring it over the stitch. Let me zoom in a bit, sorry. I'm going to bring it over the stitch that I'm skipping. So I want to skip this stitch right here. Just going to lay it there and continue on. And it's going to mark where my chain 1 space is. So I've chain 1, skipping a stitch, 2 singles. 1, 2, chain 1. And the next one, skip 1. 1, 2. This one I threaded from the other side. Just drape it over the stitch. And chain 1, skip that stitch and do your 5 at the end. 2, 3, 4. And what that does is it tells you exactly where your chain spaces are. And it also helps you keep on track because you can visually see that I've got them in the right spot, that those little holes are all lined up, that you haven't skipped something. And even if you were to forget the chain 1, it's so small, at least you're in the right spot, okay? So I thought this worked pretty well, got into a nice routine. I ended up not having to really count because I could see where I was. As long as I ended with 5 at the end and these looked straight, I knew the pattern was going to work, okay? So you would continue on and make your whole strip just like this. So, use your waste yarn accordingly, cut a long strip, long pieces to do. It can be anything. It can just be embroidery floss. It can be whatever. Just don't make it super thick because you're going to want to be able to put your hook in there to do the surface crochet, okay? So something the same weight or thinner than what you've already got. And then as you go along, when you turn it over, then you just flip them the other way. So it ends up just going in and out and keeps a nice straight line. It's a little easier to see in the other colorway I did, which now I have magically lost. Oh, there it is. So particularly in a darker yarn, I was never going to find those chain 1 spaces. And this will keep you having to hunt for them as you do the embellishing stitches. Okay, so are there any questions on the base fabric in doing this? No? Okay. So let me show you how you do a surface crochet. So I'm going to pick let's pick a different color to use. Although somebody was doing their strip today and they were doing the surface crochet in the same color, so it just looked embossed, and that was pretty cool too. Depending on the look you're going for. Okay, so you start with a slip knot on your hook. All right, and I'm going to turn this sideways because I think it's a little bit easier. The directions tell you with the right side of the base fabric facing you, and they're really in this fabric, there is no right or wrong side because you've done the same thing on every row. You're going to insert your hook from front to back to front around the first chain 1 space. So I'm looking at my little slip here. Here is the very first chain 1 space right here, okay? So I'm going to go from front to back to front. So you're just kind of coming underneath. If I'm looking at it this way, you're going like that. Actually, that's the chain 1 space is right above it. Yeah, we're going to go in there. That's fine. Okay. And then I'm going to make a single crochet, not with my tail. And then I'm going to go to the next chain 1 space following my line. So I went there. I'm going to go here. So I'm going underneath, front to back to front, single crochet, go to the next one. And this one, don't go all the way up here. This was one right here that it was covering this way. But just, you don't want to skip any rows. Here's the next one. And I can just follow my line of waste yarn. Get to the top here and I'll turn it the right direction. And what you get is a nice straight line of single crochet stitches going up. And then when you're done, you can pull out your waste yarn. Make sure I'm pulling the right piece. So when you're all done, you can just slide this out And you've got your row of single crochet, and it's nice and straight, and you did not have to hunt for the chain spaces. So when you do a single crochet surface on the surface, it stands up a little bit. So it's got a little bit of a dimension to it. If that is something that you don't want, you want it smoother, you could do square 61 or strip 61, which is a slip stitch version. Remember, a slip stitch has no height. And I'll show you the difference. I'll do it right next to it in the next one. So you would do this all the way up everywhere you had made a line of chain spaces. So for the slip stitch, you're going to go in the same way. And I find it's just easier to work this way into it. So I turn it sideways. Go into the first chain space. And instead of doing a single crochet, do a slip stitch. One of the things we talked about in class today is that somebody said that their slip stitches tended to be very tight. And I would say mine were also very tight until I watched some video that said, instead of making, let me take it out and do it again. Instead of doing your slip stitch all in one movement, because a slip stitch has no yarn overs. Like I'm got little octopus things hanging everywhere. Okay, go into your space, yarn over, and you pull all the way through. Okay, that's how you do a slip stitch. You don't stop and do any yarn overs, you just pull all the way through. Mine tended to be pretty tight when I did that. If you change how you do this, and instead, oops, go into the stitch, pull the loop up, the first one, and just, instead of just continuing to pull, just pause there for a second and get that up to the same height, and then pull through the second loop. So let's go through the next one. So grab the yarn, come through the second loop. Just that little pause, I'm still not doing any yarn overs, allows me to pull that loop up so that it's not so tight. Okay. And I started doing this with granny squares where you have to slip stitch to join. My slip stitches were getting really tight, especially if you have to do something with those slip stitches later. So they look almost identical from the top, but from the side, let's see if I can get rid of. This one is much smoother here. It almost is completely flat against the base fabric. So you can have one that stands up a little bit like that, or one that doesn't stand up at all if you want a smoother look. So that's the difference between doing that. Single crochet versus slip stitch. All right, so that actually kind of covers 60 and 61. Make it your own, however you want to do it. You could get really creative and add, you know, other embellishments along the way. Stop and do a little bobble here. I just like that crisp look though of the stripes. You could do this with any crochet fabric. I've seen this on knitted fabric also, where you go after the fact and add a surface crochet to it. I've seen writing. You can do this as, you know, putting a monogram on something, spelling out a name, shapes, all kinds of things. So, but having this little guide wire for you will make a big difference. Okay, so that's surface crochet. Got yarn everywhere. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so now we're going to go back to number 58, the simple frills. And this one has a slightly different base fabric in that you're doing, starts with 5 single crochets. And then you've just got spaces of 4 singles instead of 2. It's just spread out differently. But here's how you do. I'll do that one in the white. So a nice contrast. The simple frills. So if you look at the bottom, the simple frills, instead of being a 1-row embellishment pattern, it's 2 rows. Starts the same way, slip knot on your hook. I'm going to turn it sideways again. And I'm going to start the same way, doing single crochets all the way up. There's 1, 2. Make sure you're not skipping. You're going underneath the stitches you can see and the ones that you can't, because that yarn is weaving, your guide wires is weaving in and out. So make sure you're getting all of them all the way up. This goes much faster this way. It's actually a pretty quick technique. Obviously, crocheting the base fabric is going to take the majority of your time. We did have somebody come in today and she was all prepared. She had crocheted her whole base fabric. And then I showed her that tip and she was really, really angry. Okay. So a line of single crochet, that's row 1. Row 2, to give it the frill, I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to go back down this line of single crochet. I'm going to do an increase. I'm going to put 2 singles in every stitch all the way down. That's how you get a ruffle. If I wanted it super roughly, I could put 3 single crochets in each single crochet all the way down. I'm going to follow the direction. The next strip over is called ruffles, and I think they use double crochets to make it really stand up. But it is the increasing in your, did I do an increase there? I did not. I just started gabbing. I'm not going to get the ruffle. It's the doing the increase that gives it the frilliness. And the more increases you do in each stitch, the more frilly it'll be. 2. Now this one definitely stands up because you're doing a whole second row. I don't know that I would necessarily want this on my blanket unless you're going for a really textured blanket, which is awesome, but I think it would be really cool on a pillow. So then when we lay it back down, because if we continued on, you would get the frills. It would go back and forth like that. It does stand up pretty tall. Okay. I'm gonna pull it out for a second and show you if you did 3 in each, what it would look like. This is not necessarily a reversible blanket. I'll turn this over, or strip, I should say. Somebody in the class is really trying to only do mostly reversible strips, or at least very pleasing backsides. So I'll show you what the backside looks like this in just a second. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. If you didn't want it to stand up quite so high, you could go down a hook size and try to, do this this row a lot tighter. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, One more. I think this would also be adorable around the bottom of a girl's dress. So it really curls up a lot more and you get that frilly look when you do 3 in there, okay? So definitely got some height there, but it's not hard. It's really squishy. Here's what the back looks like. Gosh, so that's what the back looks like. Even if I were to pull out my strand here, that's what it would look like without your guide wire in it. So it's not bad looking. It's just, it doesn't look like the front, obviously. So, so those were the 2 that I wanted to demonstrate, but we talked in class this morning. Let me zoom out. That some of the other ones, like this one, these are added randomly after the fact, and these are just little cluster stitches that are randomly added to a background fabric of, let's see, single crochet stitches all the way across. And you can put them wherever you want. You could also put them in a design if you wanted to. Okay, these are just little finger pom-poms added at the end and secured on there. The same thing here with the fringe, making tassels and attaching them on. And this one was done, the base fabric was done with front post double crochet, which probably gives you a nice post to attach the tassel to. Same thing here, other tufty tassels there. Excuse me. This one, the ruffles, let's see, is done also a base fabric of single crochet, but then the ruffle is done, let's see, it's got 3 rows, and you're doing, you start with single crochet, and then you do double crochet, and then you do slip stitch and some chain 3s to add. I wish I could see it from the side, to add a really ruffly texture. And then these were the 2 we went over, and that's it. So you have a background fabric, and then you can add whatever you want to it. The majority of them have spaces where you're adding to give you that nice line. Some of them are random, but I think the technique of using the little waist yarn will really help make that make it much easier. And I think for mine, I'm going to do, I don't really want ruffles. I do like this color combination though. I'm going to do the slip stitch. That's the one that I liked, but I do like the close together. I just think that those nice clean lines are really pretty. So that's all I got. Let me stop sharing that. Does anybody have any questions?
Nope.
No question, but my brain is going overtime. It would seem like you could make your fabric reversible by just doing the same thing on the opposite side.
You could, and we did that this morning. You
Oh,
could,
did you? Okay.
You could. So you almost have to, let me go back to the camera. So we tried that. Excuse me. So here's the one that we already did. If you were,
right,
you could either go, zoom in. You could either make it right next to it on this side.
mm-hmm.
And you see, as long as you're using the same color that you did on the other side, you
Right.
really couldn't tell.
Blend in.
We tried to go like underneath the white and attach it there. It was really hard and way more time consuming than anybody was willing to like fuss with. But I think if you went and just did it right next to it, you would have this mark would then show up on the other side and you would have,
Mhm.
yeah, so you absolutely
Yeah.
could make it reversible. I don't know that I would want a ruffle on both sides, but you could.
But even just the surface might.
Exactly. The surface one I think would be really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought this would be really cute around the edging of a pillow.
Yeah.
Or just in stripes down the center of a pillow. But yeah, I thought it was fun.
That was fascinating that you started with a straight line and it ended up being that curved line. I thought that
I
was
know it. Exactly. Yep.
Hmm.
The magic.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I pulled that out of my memory from like 15 years ago that she used.
That's a great one. It
And
is.
so we were doing increases in this this shawl, and she's like, I don't have time to keep moving stitch markers up all the time. Like she didn't want to stop and like take the stitch marker out and then put the stitch marker back. So she just flipped that yarn back and forth, and it stayed right where it doesn't go anywhere. It stays right where you need it. I'm like, oh,
right.
genius.
I know.
And then if you're trying to figure out how many increases have I done, you can go back and find them.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or whatever it is you're doing. So
Yeah.
tip.
Good.
I wish I could remember
tip.
that teacher's name. I thought that was great. Yeah.
Excellent tip.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's all I have today.
Yeah, that was an easy one.
It was an easy one. Yeah. It looks like it's going to be really complicated, and it's not.
Yeah.
No.
But I've done surface before, and it's hard to do without that guideline.
Yes, it
Get
is.
it right. Yeah. I was all over the place.
The woman who came today, who had her whole strip already done, what we did is we went to her very first row, and I put stitch markers for her. We identified her chain one space in the first row, and then she was going to use a darning needle with the waste yarn and work her way up, and then just watch to make sure it was straight. If she's, as long as it looks straight, it's going to be fine.
Right.
Sure.
So that's what matters with this. It doesn't have to be in the exact right spot. If it was double crochets or something bigger, you would really tell if you were off. So she was going to go and do that and then go back and do the crochet over it. I would much rather spend the time with a darning needle making a straight line than having to stop and check every time I did a stitch. Is it straight? Is it straight? Is it straight? So.
And it's sometimes hard to see when you've only done one stitch if it's a little off until you're down the road and it goes sideways.
Right, 3 stitches later, I realized that, or 4 stitches, I veered off. Yeah.
That's what I did last time I did it.
Yeah. But the crestfallen look on her face when she's like, look, I finished my whole strip. I'm like, oh crap, I got to show you how to do it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure she's thankful by now.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Good.
All right, everybody. Well, I will see you guys next month where I think we're doing ribbing and cables.
Okay.
Ooh,
so,
I'm anxious for that one. Yes.
Yeah, that's got many uses, not just for the blanket. So that'll be fun.
Okay.
Good.
All righty.
Wonderful.
We'll see you guys later.
Yep. Okay. Thank you much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.